Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to have a look at another collaboration beer. So this one is half Swedish on the home side, half Dutch on the away side. Both of the breweries involved here have featured on the channel before, albeit the Swedish brewery more regularly and more recently. But both of them I've had really nice beers from before, and I'm really curious to see how this one turns out because it's one of my favourite styles of traditional Belgian beer, and I've had such good experiences from these guys in the past. Both of these breweries know what they're doing when it comes to the malty side of things, which bodes well for this one. So for this review then, like I say, for the home brewery we are sticking to Sweden. We're going to go a little bit to the north to Örebro, out to the west of Stockholm, and we're having a look at yet another beer from Närke Kulturbryggeri. So this particular beer is called the Kees Triangle Quadrupel. It comes in at 10% ABV and it is brewed in collaboration with Brouwerij Kees from the Netherlands. I think the main reason that I got this one was because it was a quadrupel, and this is a style that I really quite enjoy. But the beers that I've had from Brouwerij Kees before, it was the Caramel Fudge Stout, which was lovely, and also the Scotch Ale. So like I say, Brouwerij Kees know what they're doing on the malty side of things, whereas from Närke Kulturbryggeri I've had IPAs, I've had stouts, and various random things as well. So as I say, both of these breweries know what they're doing when it comes to the malty side of things. And yeah, my favourite styles of beer on the Belgian end of the spectrum would be blondes, quadrupels, tripels, Flanders Reds, and some of the lambic beers as well. That's probably where my my preferences lie when it comes to the Belgian style beers. But yeah, as I say, very curious to see how this one turns out. This beer was released as part of the Lokal Osmoska League assortiment for October of 2020 through Systembolaget here in Sweden, and it's nice to see a Brouwerij Kees beer coming through Sweden actually, because we don't get all that many of them. I've seen one or two of them, but otherwise not all that many. We don't get too many Dutch beers through Systembolaget here in Sweden, unfortunately. And I don't see too many of them over in Copenhagen either, which is a shame. But yeah, since this beer is half Dutch, massive shout out to the guys at the Dutch Beer Collective, Thomas Opent, Thomas Hugendam at Thomas Opent. We have Remy den Dupe from Beer Geek Holland, and then we have Herben from Dutch Beer Geek, as well as Douglas Hesselmans, who's recently joined the Dutch Beer Collective, and his channel is called Beers with Douglas. So massive shout out to these guys. Make sure you check out the link to the Dutch Beer Collective Instagram in the video description below, and you will see some of these guys on the channel very, very soon. The day that this review publishes, I will actually be flying to the Netherlands, and I'm going to go and meet Thomas at the weekend, and we'll do some filming and stuff like that together, so I hope that you guys do that. And as I say, massive shout out to the four guys at the Dutch Beer Collective, and nice to have another Dutch beer for you here on the channel. So as I say, I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one, a 10% Belgian style quadrupel from Närke Kulturbryggeri in Örebro, and Brouwerij Kees from Middelburg down in the Netherlands. So yeah, let's see how we get on with this one then. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery websites, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Närke Kulturbryggeri, as well as another link to my other reviews from Brouwerij Kees as well. There's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for both the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you, and another one for all the Dutch beers I've reviewed for you. This beer will feature in both of those lists because it is dual nationality. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Närke Kulturbryggeri first off then, since these guys are the home brewery. So Närke Kulturbryggeri, as I've told you before, are based in Örebro, out to the west of Stockholm, and this company was founded back in 2003, which makes it one of the older and more established craft breweries here in Sweden. So the company was founded by Håge Viktorsson and Berit Karlsson. Håge had a career as a photographer and an artist before he became a brewer, and from what I gather he is largely self-trained, actually self-taught, whereas Berit on the other hand is the CEO of the company and also, pardon me, the chair of the Swedish Independent Brewers Association, the Sverige Oberoende Mikrobryggerier. So both of these guys are very, very well respected in the Swedish craft beer scene, fair to say. But for a long time this brewery were only producing keg beer, but more recently they started to produce their beers for bottles as well, and this helped them grow substantially, and this came after they bought the former brew kit and bottling machine of Nynäshamns Ångbryggeri, who are another of the kind of older and well established breweries. I think Nynäshamns Ångbryggeri were actually the first Swedish craft brewery, and it was Opigård's brewery that formed around the same time as these guys. But the brewery currently produce around 100,000 litres of beer per year, and they're particularly famous for the Kagen Stormax Porter, which was rated as the world's best beer for a very long time on Rate Beer. Unfortunately, I've never been able to get a hold of one of these to try it because it sells out like this as soon as it comes through Systembolaget, which is a shame. But this beer was first produced in 2004 as Stormax Port, but later when it was aged in bourbon barrels it became known as Kagen Stormax Port, basically the barrel aged Stormax Porter, if you like, or Powerful Porter, I believe that would mean the big Powerful Porter, if you like. But unfortunately, recently, just a few weeks ago actually, Helge Vigdisson passed away of cancer, which was a real shame, and he was considered a real kind of godfather of the Swedish craft beer scene. But thankfully the brewery will carry on in his spirit, but obviously he was a big loss to the Swedish craft beer scene. So yeah, we'll dedicate this review to him because I know how highly regarded he is in the Swedish craft beer scene. He's one of these people that I would have loved to have on the channel for a kind of meet the brewery segment, but you know, that's just kind of how it goes. So yeah, we'll dedicate this one to Helge Vigdisson, one of the real pioneers of the Swedish craft beer scene. But yeah, I've had a number of beers that Helge has designed over the last while, and as of October 2020, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 150 different beers, and like I say, they're very well respected because they are one of the older and more established craft breweries, and Helge Vigdisson was a big part of the reason that this brewery became so popular actually. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Närke Kulturbryggeri for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and of course you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, that's all for Närke Kulturbryggeri. Let's go on to the Dutch side of things then. So Brouwerij Kees. So as I've told you already, Brouwerij Kees are based in Middelburg in the Netherlands, and the company was founded by Kees Boerman back in 2015. So Kees started home brewing in 1996 in his kitchen with a small 10-litre kit, which allowed him to experiment with lots of different styles, but in 2007 he became the master brewer at Brouwerij Emmelisse, where he worked for about 7 years, and he helped them expand their repertoire and build their brewing capacity quite significantly, and that brewery became very well respected over the years that he was there. A bit later on though, in 2014, he decided that he wanted to return to his hometown, and he decided he wanted his own brewery as well. So he found a premises in Middelburg to get this started, and he used crowdfunding to start up this new brewery, and they've been growing strongly ever since he's got them off the ground, if you like. So these days they're producing in the region of 300,000 litres of beer per year. The main beers that I've had from these guys have been very malty, so I think they're very good at the malty kind of side of things, but they do produce a vast array of different beers, and as of October 2020, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 120 different kinds of beer according to Untappd. So that's a fairly strong, fairly strong output, if you like, for having only been around about 5 years actually, and I think the production only kind of ramped up in about 2016 or so. As I said to you, I had the chocolate fudge stout from them, which was really nice, and then I have had the Scotch ale as well more recently, and like I say, when it comes to the malty side of beers, I know that Brouwerij Kees know what they're doing. I've not had IPAs and things from them, but yeah, I know that these guys are a very solid brewery, and the Dutch guys tell me that they really know what they're doing as well. So yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Brouwerij Kees for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, again, you can find the brewery website in the video description below. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's see how we got on with this one then. That's the history section of the video sorted. So I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork of this one before we open it up. There you can see kind of typical label for a Närke Kulturbryggeri beer, this one. This is the first Närke beer that I've had in the slightly more stubby 330 milliliter bottles actually. So yeah, quite cool. But as you can see, the artwork on this one is quite typical of what you would expect from a Närke Kulturbryggeri beer. There you can see the Närke Kulturbryggeri symbol with their trademark kind of catchphrase there, Inget Blesk, basically nothing shit. But there you can see the Brouwerij Kees symbol as well, which is quite nice. And of course we've got a Närke Kulturbryggeri bottle cap on this one. But yeah, it's quite an interesting one. This doesn't tell you anything about the beer on the label and stuff like that, other than the fact that it is a 10%. Other than it is a 10% unpasteurised quadrupel brewed with coriander and cinnamon. So this should be quite interesting. So yeah, co-brewed, collaboration brewed at Närke Kulturbryggeri, and they're saying this is 1/3 of a litre. So yeah, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. As I mentioned to you earlier, this beer was released as part of the Lokal och Småskaligt assortment for Systembolaget here in Sweden on the 1st of October 2020. So yeah, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. Very curious to see what this beer has in store for us. So yeah, this looks really good. Quite a bright looking quadrupel actually. So yeah, let's see what we have here. Oh, that's going to fade away quite quickly. So as you could see when we poured this beer, we had a 1/4 finger of a frothy, I would say, kind of fawny coloured head on this one. 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass there, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there, but you can see the head has kind of dissipated just to form a very kind of thin foamy layer on the top, and there's a little bit of a kind of fluffy fawn coloured ring around the outside of the beer. But yeah, 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up there, but otherwise it looks pretty nice, I have to say. It looks pretty good. So if we shine the light through this beer, this one actually is a really kind of deep mahogany colour. That's one of the brighter looking quadrupels that I've come across in recent times, and it's crystal clear, which I think, I've had a couple of very, very clear quadrupels, but not all that many of them, I have to say. So yeah, this one, to say, definitely one of the cleanest looking quadrupels I've come across. I'm always surprised with these beers at how clear they are. Quite often they add a little bit of brewing sugar to these beers to kind of take the alcohol up a little bit, and also I do find, you know, the quadrupels are quite a bit thinner, if you like, in terms of mouthfeel compared to, you know, the German Doppelbocks or the Scotch ales, which are kind of comparable styles in terms of flavour profile. But yeah, the aroma, well, I can smell some of the aroma of this beer already, but in terms of appearance, it looks very nice. One of the brighter looking quadrupels that I've come across in recent times. So yeah, on that note, let's have a little look at the aroma and see how we get on with this. And I'm very curious to see with this coriander and cinnamon added into the quadrupel. That should be quite interesting. Ooh, now that does smell really good actually. So straight away with this beer, you're going to get those lovely big brown sugary notes that you expect of a quadrupel. So you do get the big yeasty kind of notes as you would expect. So there's a nice big kind of brown bready, kind of doughy yeasty kind of thing coming out of this one. You can definitely get some woody kind of undertones to the beer. There's a good little bit of nuttiness in there coming out. But yeah, you can smell the cinnamon in this one straight away, and the coriander's fairly obvious as well, so it kind of feels like you've got a whole, the base of this beer is actually really quite complex. You've got a little bit of that kind of brown bready sort of thing. It's a little bit cakey, like I say, as well, and there's some doughy yeasty notes to it, but the coriander and the the coriander and the cinnamon all kind of feel as if they're just kind of mashed into that big sort of bready base that the beer has. So that's an interesting point to make about this one for sure. So yeah, big sort of cakey, doughy, yeasty kind of bready kind of thing to this one. But yeah, the aroma that comes out of this beer is quite nice. It almost has a little bit of a kind of marzipan-y type vibe to it, which is quite interesting. But yeah, beyond the kind of bready, doughy, yeasty sort of thing, which is the backbone of the beer, you get a hell of a lot of brown sugar out of this one. So you can really smell a little bit of that kind of treacly molasses kind of thing, those highly caramelised brown sugars. I'm not sure how long the boil is on a typical quadrupel brew. I'm really not sure about that actually. The thing that affects the colour of your beers, of course, is one, the type of malts that you use, and two, how long you do the boil for, because the longer you do the boil, the more caramelisation you get, thus the thicker the mouthfeel, and also the darker the colour of the beer. And judging by this one, I mean, I don't know, that doesn't look as if it could be like a two-ish hour boil that they've done with this one. I honestly don't know, but yeah, I need to look that up at some point, how long the boil is for a standard quadrupel. But yeah, the brown sugars in this one come across as actually quite sweet. You do get a little bit of the darker treacle molasses kind of thing underneath it, but yeah, the brown sugars for me do come across quite sweet in this. So you've got a straight up caramel, you do have a little bit of that treacle molassesy thing underneath, and you've also got some nice kind of biscuity, McVitie's digestive biscuity type qualities coming out of this beer too. So yeah, pay attention to that in this one as well. So yeah, I really like how this one does its thing. So yeah, I think this could be a very interesting beer. The aroma certainly comes across really nicely. It does have an element of kind of that it comes across really like a kind of cough syrup or a cough medicine-y type thing in the aroma, but the malty side of it and the yeasty side of it that all blends together, that does come across really nicely. On the hoppy side of things then, you do have a little touch of earthiness out of this one, quite a smooth earthiness. There's a little bit of floral character in there as well, but a wee bit of a herbal note backing up, some lighter grassy notes too, and you've got some really interesting kind of fruity characters coming out of this beer. I would guess that this beer has something along the lines of Hallertau, Tettnang, or maybe like a Styrian Golding or Czech Sats. It's probably got one of these kind of hops in it, and they will, I think with these beers they do tend to use a slightly older hop so that the bitterness doesn't kind of overtake the sweetness of the beer, because the main focus for these Belgian style beers is on the yeast and the malty side of things. So yeah, lovely smelling beer. On that fruity side then, you do get a little bit of those kind of phenolic-y notes out of it. It does smell quite cakey to a degree, like a kind of like a fruit cake, so you get a lot of kind of figgy notes out of this one. There is a wee bit of a kind of datey, pruny kind of quality in there as well. Some nice blackcurranty, blackberry notes. The nice kind of blackcurranty, blackberry notes that come out of this one. So I really like how that goes together in this one. The fruity side of the beer, the more you smell it, the more you get the kind of oily blackcurranty, blackberry notes, a little bit of a juicy fig, and you've also got a little bit of how do we say, a little bit of that kind of cakey, datey, pruny, kind of dried sultana type note out of this beer. So yeah, really interesting composition this one, and it's the cinnamon. The thing is, you really get these undertones of cinnamon and coriander coming out of it. They really linger in this one. So I don't think I've ever had a quadrupel that's had these things in it. So this one I think should be a very interesting proposition. But yeah, let's have a taste of this one then and see how we get on. So this one is the Kees Triangle Quadrupel, brewed at Närke Kulturbryggeri in Örebro, here in Sweden, in collaboration with Brouwerij Kees from Middelburg down in the Netherlands. So let's have a taste of this one then and see how we get on. 10% Belgian style quadrupel, this one. Slange, skål. As I said earlier, we drink to Håge Viktorsen, one of the pioneers of the Swedish craft beer scene. Big loss for the beer scene here, so to Håge. Hans-Göran Viktorsen, I think he was 68, it said in the article. So yeah, still relatively young. So as I say, a real loss, and he was one of the ones that broke a lot of ground here with the craft breweries in Sweden. But yeah, sad loss. But yeah, in terms of his beer, that's how we're going to remember him. So let's have a look at this one then. So where to start with it? With this beer, you do have a nice kind of woody backbone for me. You get a lot of nice woody character to this one, forming the base of the beer. But you get that, you've got a nice kind of brown bready quality that just kind of sits on top of that as well. So yeah, it is very, very nice, I have to say. So, how do we describe that then? So like I say, yeah, nice kind of woody quality to this one that blankets the middle of your palate. On top of that you get a nice kind of brown bready character there, and you really can get the coriander mixing in with that kind of brown bready sort of thing. So the woody base layer kind of sits there on the beer, then on top of that you get those nice kind of you do get those nice kind of bready notes coming out of it. And it's nice, it really is nice how that goes together, and the coriander just gives the whole thing a little bit of spice. So those two layers are forming the base of the beer. If you go towards the back third of your tongue, you can feel the breadiness just kind of thickening up a little bit with this one, and that goes together really nicely. I mean, the further you go into the aftertaste with that, you can feel there's a few more sort of grainy elements coming out of the beer from the bread as well, but yeah, slightly thicker brown bready note on that back third of your tongue. But as you move further forward in this beer, you can feel that breadiness. It just kind of thins out a little bit as you move into the middle third of your palate, and then this is where you get all of the different kind of layers of brown sugar. I would say actually that the cinnamon is kind of mixing in with that woody bready side of things as well, which is quite interesting. So yeah, this beer it's really nicely done, this, but it's a little bit, it's one of the more spicy quadrupels that I've come across, come to think of it. So yeah, definitely a more kind of spicy leaning quadrupel, this one, and the cinnamon notes, I think it's the cinnamon and the coriander both really lingered there into the aftertaste of this one. So yeah, this one, it does have an element in that kind of base there. You'll notice this more as the flavour kind of develops into the aftertaste, but you'll feel just towards the back of that middle third of your tongue and at the start of the back third of your tongue, you really get a kind of almost cakey type quality coming out of this one. It's like a dried, one of these kind of boozy fruit cake, and it's almost a little bit like Christmas pudding, to be honest with you. You really feel that sort of dry cakey note kind of building on the beer here, and it's really interesting how that kind of comes out in the way it does. But yeah, the cinnamon and the coriander really kind of contribute to that sort of spicy, dry, cakey character that this beer has. So yeah, really quirky beer in that sense, I have to say. But yeah, the brown sugars then, let's focus on that. So if you go to the middle third of your palate, like I said, this is where the nice kind of oily brown sugary characters come out of the beer. So if you go to the very centre of your tongue, you can feel that nice slightly darker treacle molasses kind of quality, and that is that's where that really is the kind of that is the real kind of base of the boozy side of the beer. So you nice big oily kind of treacly molasses note there. As you move a little bit further out, it does get a little bit more kind of sweet and caramelly, and then further beyond that, it's got a nice kind of biscuity, McVitie's digestive sort of thing. But like I say, underneath you have the kind of cakey note that I was talking about, and then underneath that you've got the yeasty kind of bready thing with the coriander coming up. With the bready notes in this beer, incidentally, are a little bit more I would say sort of like German rye bread, if you like, and then the very base of the beer is that slightly kind of slick, woody kind of character to it. So yeah, this is a really interesting one. It's quite a layered beer, this, but you will see on the back third of your palate it feels significantly thicker in terms of the breadiness. And the one thing, like I say, with these quadrupels is that they add a bit of brewing sugar to them, so the brown sugars tend to have a little bit of a kind of complexity to them, and this beer certainly lives up to that, especially with the coriander and the cinnamon addition to it. This one is definitely one of the more spicy quadrupels that I've come across in recent times. So I think we've covered the kind of yeasty and malty side of this beer quite extensively. So on the hoppy side of things then, in the back corners of the palate you've got a nice little bit of earthiness there, and as you move further forward along the sides of the palate you'll get a wee touch of herbal quality in there. I do think this is most likely to be a kind of Styrian Golding hop, or maybe a Czech Žatec or something, or yeah, as I say, Hallertau Tettnanger. It's one of these kind of noble type hops that's in this beer, just going from the type of flavours that you're getting. So nice kind of smooth earthiness, a little bit herbal, and as you move further forward it's got a nice little bit of floral aromaticity to it. Then round the very front curve of the tongue it's just a little bit lighter and more grassy, and then behind that front curve of the tongue on that front third of the palate, that's where you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer, and this is where it starts to show some really nice complexity actually. So yeah, on that border between the middle third of your palate, between the middle third of your palate and the front third of your palate, then you do get a little bit of that kind of cakey edge to the beer. You do get a really nice kind of cakey quality coming out of it. So yeah, it's like it's a little bit like chocolate, like not chocolate pudding, like Christmas pudding. To be honest with you, my dad always used to love Christmas pudding for his birthday. That was his birthday cake, was Christmas pudding, even though his birthday was in February. But yeah, it really has a little bit of that almost Christmas puddingy type vibe to it on that border area, this beer. But if you move further forward from that, you get a really nice kind of, you get a very nice, how do we say, a sort of more oily, fruity character to the beer. It very quickly becomes, it's got, if you go to the back of that front third of your palate, it's quite like sultana-like a dried grapey sort of thing. You do get that nice kind of sultana flavour to it. Then as you move further forward, it's a little bit more oily and a little bit more figgy. I don't know if we could say there's a kind of, there is definitely a sort of sultana, datey, pruny sort of thing going on at the back of that front third of your palate, but as you move further forward it's quite figgy, and then as you reach the kind of front, part of the front half of that front third of your tongue, you've got a really nice kind of oily, a kind of blackcurranty, blackberry sort of thing coming out of the beer. And yeah, it's the oily blackcurrants and blackberries that really linger there the further you go into the aftertaste, along with a little bit of the kind of datey, pruny, sultana type vibe to the beer. But then the spiciness, that sort of spiciness from the cinnamon and the coriander really lingers in this one too. So as I said, this is a very kind of spicy leaning quadrupel for me. So yeah, it's nicely done this, and it's just a little bit quirky, which is kind of what you want. You want these beers to make you think a little bit, and this one certainly has done that. It's got a really nice spicy vibe to it, this beer, and the coriander and the cinnamon are what really give it that, and the way that the fruits complement it, the sort of dried, datey, datey, pruny sort of thing that the beer has, comes across really nicely. It is a little bit phenolic, this beer, I will say that. It does have a wee bit of that kind of cough syrupy type vibe to it, mainly because of the way the fruits come out, and also a little bit the way that the malty, kind of yeasty side of things is going with this one. But yeah, it is a lovely beer, this, and I've enjoyed tasting this one for you for sure, definitely. So you really get more of that oily kind of blackcurranty, blackberry thing. There is a wee bit of that coming out in the aftertaste, but the fruits mainly for me, as I say, I'd say quite figgy, and then it's really that datey, pruny, kind of sultana type flavour that lingers there into the aftertaste. So yeah, I think that sums up the fruity side of the beer pretty well, to be honest with you. But thumbs up to both breweries involved here. This is a really quirky take on the quadrupel, and I've certainly enjoyed tasting this one for you. So yeah, have a go at this one if you want a slightly more spicy quadrupel. Actually, it is very, very nicely done in that sense. I've had tripels like this before, and I think it was Brouwerij Kees. It was the very first beer that I had from Brouwerij Kees down in the Netherlands. They had like a sort of coriander spiced tripel, if I remember right. That's the first time I encountered coriander in one of these bigger Abbey style Belgian beers. So yeah, this one has been a really interesting one. It's been a really interesting one, to be honest with you. So thumbs up to both breweries. I think this is a nice, this is a pretty damn solid beer in my mind. So yeah, cool to see these guys collaborate. I don't know, I wonder what the connection was, if they met each other at a beer festival or something. I really wonder what the connection was between these guys that made them brew this one together, because it's Närke, they don't do too many Belgian style beers, and I actually don't think that Brouwerij Kees do all that many either, to be honest with you. So this is a really interesting and very quirky collaboration in that sense. But yeah, in terms of the mouthfeel then, what would we say about this one? I would say, yeah, this is top end to mid-bodied. Carbonation is quite smooth. The mouthfeel overall, it does feel really clean, this one. That's one of the things that we would have to say about this beer, is that for a quadrupel, for a quadrupel, it's a little bit, it maybe needs a little touch more thickness, to be honest with you, for a quadrupel, but that might partially be down to the Swedish water. You know, the Swedish water is very, very pure, very, very clean. So yeah, that's one of the things that might just take the mouthfeel of this one down a bit, is just how pure and clean the Swedish water is, because this one does come across, it is a little touch light in its mouthfeel for a quadrupel. You do want these beers to be a little bit more kind of sticky, if you like, but then again it is leaning more towards the spicy end of the spectrum, so that may well be changing the perception of this beer. So yeah, I do like how I do like how it goes together, as I say, but it's quite a wet and slightly light feeling quadrupel, this one. You do maybe want just a little bit more oiliness and stickiness out of the beer style, but yeah, it could just be the water that's doing that with this one. In terms of the bitterness of this beer, I think, you know, this is quite a low IBU beer, obviously, and you do expect that from a quadrupel. This is probably like 15 IBUs, maybe 20 at the absolute most, but I would say probably 15 IBUs is a fair bet from this one. You don't expect a lot of hoppy character from these Belgian style quadrupels. In terms of the kind of malty side of the beer, then it's quite, like I say, there's a bit of woodiness in there. You do get a few nutty qualities developing in this one as well. I never mentioned that earlier. If you go to the centre of your palate and move forward, you will feel a few nutty notes in there. So yeah, nice kind of malty smoothness to the beer, but it does have a good degree of spiciness, this one, and that's both the yeast, that's the cinnamon and the coriander that's doing that. But this beer for me is quite cakey. It's got a little bit of dryness to the malt base, but you've also got a good little bit of an oily kind of sweetness in there, as we talked about earlier, and it's quite a toasty brown sugar, to be honest. So the malt base really gets a little bit drier the further you go into the aftertaste with this one. So a nice little bit of hoppy bitterness, good bit of sweetness to the malt base, but also a little bit of dryness and toastiness in there as well. Then you've got some nice juicy, almost dried fruity vibes coming out of this beer. So yeah, quite an interesting one. This one of the lighter quadrupels, I would say, in terms of its mouthfeel, but a really kind of interesting one. And I think the cinnamon and the coriander that's been added to this adds really interesting dimension to it, and it's cool to see Närke and Brouwerij Kees collaborate together as well. But I think on that note we can end the kind of tasting section of this video. This has been a really interesting one to review, so I hope that you guys have enjoyed my take on this beer as well. The Kees Triangle Quadrupel, coming in at 10% ABV, brewed as a collaboration between Närke Kulturbryggeri and Brouwerij Kees from Middelburg down in the Netherlands. So yeah, as I said, this beer review will be airing when I am flying to the Netherlands, so by the time it has aired, I think it will have arrived at that point actually. But yeah, really looking forward to seeing the Dutch guys and doing a little bit of filming and stuff down there, and you will see more Dutch beer reviews over the next little while as a result of this. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. This one was the Triangle, to give it its full name here, the Kees Triangle Quadrupel, coming in at 10% ABV, collaboration beer between Närke Kulturbryggeri and Örebro up here in Sweden, and Brouwerij Kees from Middelburg down in the Netherlands. You know, as I say, this one we dedicate to Holger Vigtersson, Hans-Göran Vigtersson, who was the main man behind Närke Kulturbryggeri, a pioneer of the Swedish craft beer scene, a big loss, sadly. And yeah, his spirit will carry on. The Swedish craft beer scene is extremely strong these days, in my opinion. So you know, his life work will kind of go on for that, and it's nice to see a beer like this. This kind of this really just kind of shows you what he was all about: experimentation and producing some really interesting beers. This beer, I think, is a nice one to kind of be able to use as a tribute to him. So yeah, to Holger Vigtersson, the pioneer, one of the pioneers of the Swedish craft beer scene. Yeah. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are, both from Närke Kulturbryggeri and from Brouwerij Kees. We will no doubt return to both of these guys at some point in the fairly near future. But thank you again for watching, and I will catch you guys very soon. The Kees Triangle Quadrupel, a collaboration between Närke Kulturbryggeri and Brouwerij Kees in the Netherlands, a 10% quadrupel with a bit of cinnamon and a little bit of coriander added to the brew. Quite a spicy take on the Belgian style quadrupel, this one. But yeah, thank you again for watching. Slange, Skål, Proust. Make sure you check out both of these breweries and check out this beer if you get the chance. Skål.